The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Staring Into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me as always my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I am doing pretty good, and happy Halloween Eve, guys.
Yeah, happy Halloween.
Also joining us is, as you just heard, Marcus Koch. How you doing, brother? Horror director,
Very good.
special effects guru, the blah blah blah. You can go through the list of 1,000 different things you are. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Good talking to you again. Been a while.
Yeah, we've had Marcus on the show several times now. I think, 3 maybe 4. And we've also done his show on YouTube. And we're having him back for Halloween because he wants to talk about some pretty interesting stuff he's been doing and also about horror movies. So without further ado, I'm going to throw over to Marcus. And what's on your mind, brother?
Hey, not a whole lot. It's been a weird 2 years, I guess for everybody. So I hit 2 years where I didn't have any work coming in because none of us did. But things are slowly starting to come back around. So that's a plus. Movies are coming back, FX gigs are coming back. So yeah, I got a lot on the table.
Yeah, I saw that you were just either filming or just working on something. Can you talk about that, or is that top secret?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things that, we're in the process of filming. There was a really big gig that we got on. Unfortunately, it went tits up, so I can't talk about that one. Just in case it comes back. I don't know. Don't want to curse things.
Yeah, I saw on Facebook, I believe it was, that you were out filming, and I was just wondering what you were filming. But if you can't talk about it, that's cool. I understand that. So, since it's Halloween, I thought it would be interesting, and old boy thought it would be interesting if we discuss some horror movies and stuff. Because you're like a horror movie director, special effects guy, all that. So, let's do a list. What do you think? Maybe top 5, maybe? What are your top 5 favorite horror movies?
Oh boy, man, be easier to do a top 100 or 1,000. I don't know. I like a lot of movies.
Do a top 10.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do a top 10. That'd be cool.
Oh, let me think here. Some of the movies that I like, that I would throw in a top 10. Some of them are outside of the horror genre kind of per se, but weird. But anyway, let me try and narrow this focus in. Top 10, probably hands down one of my favorites for the longest time as far as horror movies go. It's a funny horror movie, and that's Frankenhooker. I love that one. I always consider that my number one favorite film because I like funny films that have a fun sense of humor to them. But recently, I guess within the last 5 years, this other film came out that kind of replaced the number one spot, and that's The Greasy Strangler. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's batshit funny, weird.
No, I haven't seen that, but speaking about funny horror movies, there was one I watched when I was younger, and it is one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen, but it is so bad that it's good. Nudist Colony of the Dead. Have you ever seen that one?
Weirdly enough, no, I haven't, but I used to own, I don't even know how I came across it. I had a VHS slip, the box for it, but I never had the tape. But I always had this Nudist Colony of the Dead. Never seen it. Had the slip cover.
If you ever have the opportunity and you can ever find it anywhere, Check it out. It is so bad, but it is hilariously funny.
Okay. Add that to the must-see list. So competing for number one spot is, Frankenhooker and The Greasy Strangler. I love Reanimator. I love Dolls, From Beyond, Tourist Trap. What are some other good ones in there? Bride of Reanimator, Society, and that leaves me two more. So many to choose from. Freaked. Does Freak count as a horror film? I don't know if it's very effects heavy and there's monsters in it and, freaks, hideous mutant freaks. So I'll consider Freak. Yeah, I love Freaked. Dr. Caligari, not the black and white silent film, but have you ever seen the 1990 Dr. Caligari? It's like a weird kind of perverse art horror film.
No, I haven't seen the new one.
Oh, no, not a new one. I mean, this came out about 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Oh, Jesus Christ. What year are we in? This came out, it was made in 1989. But it's made by a filmmaker who goes by Rinse Dream. And I don't know, it's such a bizarre film, and I love it. Maybe one day this film will get like a DVD release or a Blu-ray or special edition. That would be awesome. That would make my year. But Dr. Caligari, you should see that one.
All right, what is your top 10, bro? I know what your number one is. I can already tell you your number one's probably Evil Dead. But
Evil Dead 2.
What is your list?
Okay, we'll start it right here. Evil Dead 2, you already knew. Army of Darkness, their original Halloween, the Serbian film. I love that movie. And people are going to say why, but I think it was brilliant. I love Lost Boys. That's another one. I'm not doing the 1983 version of The Thing, or 82. I forget which one is 82 or 83. I love that movie too. And it's sci-fi, but I think that's 7 right there, or 6. The Frankenstein 1931. I understand it's not horror, but it's still in the genre. That's one of my favorite movies of all time, of black and white, because I just love the story of Frankenstein. That's 7. I Saw the Devil. I know it's a murder / horror kind of, but I love that movie. If you guys get a chance, it's a Korean film. It's great.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good one.
That's a good one. Because there's so many guys. This was so hard.
I know.
This one was so hard out there.
It gets harder the deeper into the list you go. You're down to like I've got to whittle it down.
Yeah, I'm trying to whittle a couple movies in this one. You know what? The Dawn of the Dead movie from 1978, and probably The Exorcist. How about you, James?
This is the portion of the show where I'm probably going to get a lot of boos, because my list is definitely weird and something that a lot of horror fans probably wouldn't agree with. But I also like funny horror movies as well, like Marcus does, and I like some scary ones too. So I think number one I would put The Devil's Rejects, because I absolutely love that movie, and that's probably one that's going to get a boo, but I love that movie. Some of the other movies I really, really love. I loved the original Wrong Turn. I thought that was a fantastic movie. The original Jeepers Creepers is always one of me and my wife's favorites, because she loves the Jeepers Creepers movies, and I enjoy watching them with her. Interview with the Vampire with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. Love that movie. I used to watch that movie over and over. I've seen that movie probably 50 times. So that's 4 already. Army of Darkness, I would definitely throw in the list, because like I said, I love funny movies, and that is just a great. I mean, how can you go wrong with Ash? You know what I mean? So that's 5. The original Nightmare on Elm Street, I would put that on there. That's actually the only movie that ever actually scared me, was the original Nightmare on Elm Street, because when I saw that in the theater, I was a little kid when it came out. And it just scared the hell out of me when I first saw it. And it's the only one that ever has. So what is that now, 6?
Yeah.
Another one I would throw in there that's very, very weird. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's a movie called Tusk. And my wife hates that movie. but it is such an interesting idea that he turns this dude into a human walrus. And it is a dumb movie and it is a gross movie, but it is hilariously funny and it is just a great idea for a movie. So that would be 7. I would also throw another really stupid one, The Toxic Avenger. I would throw that in there because I just love that movie. Return of the Living Dead. I thought that was a solid movie. What is that, 9 now?
Yeah, one
Shoot,
more.
I got one more. Oh my goodness.
Hard.
Now, yeah, the last one's going to be tough. Because, okay, here's another one that's going to get a boo. And old boy's going to go ballistic on this one. Rob Zombie's Halloween. The original Halloween by Rob Zombie. I love that movie because I think Michael Myers should be big and scary, not little and puny like he is in the other movies. So that's my list.
That was just no. He knows I'm gonna get. I hate, but you know what? I'm gonna tell you something, and I want to change one. I forgot. Not Dawn of the Dead. Actually, I like Return of the Living Dead better. So I'll change that one. But I love that movie too. I actually like Rob Zombie's Halloween better than the new one. It just came out though. I'm sorry, Halloween. Die should stay died. That was horrible. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say that right now. I know people are agreeing with me. This movie irritates me. The new one just irritated me even more than Rob Zombie's Halloween. It was just. I'm sorry. I can't say that no more. I actually hate that one more.
That's Halloween Ends, right? Was that the one you're talking about?
Oh yeah, so Halloween Ends, not die, but it might as well because it pretty much killed the series.
Yeah, they should have ended that as soon as they started filming it. It was garbage. Why would you spend almost the entire movie building up a character that the audience think is going to replace Michael Myers, only to kill the character off? And like Michael Myers has almost no screen time in the movie. It is the most ridiculous ending to a series I've ever seen. It was absolute garbage. And they should be damn ashamed of themselves. That's what I think. What do you think, Marcus?
Oh, I don't know. As far as Halloween films go, the one I love is Halloween 3. I am Silver Shamrock all the way.
That was such a weird movie. I just did not get it. I mean, I know it has a cult following and people now respect it for some reason, but like for the longest time, it was just absolute garbage. It didn't even have Michael Myers in it. It didn't make any sense. People put on these Halloween pumpkin head masks and like worms and stuff come out of them. I just didn't get it.
That's the best one. I love that one. I also love Judge 2, so.
Something new. They were trying to do something new and it didn't work. But if you've seen Halloween Kills, he actually shows those 3 masks because what I've been hearing is they're going to go on that story. After this one's over, they're going to go on the Halloween 3 movie. The next movie.
I've been waiting for a Halloween 3 Part 2 my entire life. Like I'll be happy if that happens. Give me Halloween 3 Part 2. Like and we still have Tom Atkins. He's still alive. Let's bring him back, you know.
Yeah, I just thought it was a strange movie. I understand what they were trying to do. They wanted to like move away from Michael Myers and go a different direction and do something different. But I mean, I just don't think it's going to work if they try to bring it back, especially after how bad Halloween Ends was. I mean, that was just terrible, you know? And I had such high expectations. I was so looking forward to that movie. And then it came out and Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't a badass anymore. You know, she was like an old grandma. She might as well have been making cookies in the kitchen. You know what I mean? She was all mellowed out. Michael Myers was a broken down old man who couldn't do anything. You know, it was absolutely pathetic. I almost cursed her. I almost had to hit the dump button on myself because that's how disgusted I was with this movie, man.
Did you see the new Hellraiser? Have you guys seen that one yet?
I liked it.
I haven't actually got to see it yet. I've been wanting to watch it, but see, this is what happens when you're married for a long, long time. You watch movies and TV shows together, usually. So if it's something that your wife wants to watch with you, you kind of have to wait until she's ready to watch it, to actually watch it. Because if you watch it without her, you get in trouble. So I haven't actually seen it yet, but I'm looking forward to watching it.
Story-wise, it's no better, no worse than any of the other sequels. I do like the direction they took, you know, kind of like an updated, glossy, polished look with the Cenobites. You know, it's gotten a lot of critique. Oh, they look too plastic, or, you know, I don't know. They're just sleeker, glossier. The new Pinhead, the Hell Priest, Like, it works, like, I think, and I love the new puzzle box, the new laminate configuration, because they kind of explain why it changes into like a weird spike at the end of part 2. It kind of like it sets up everything that works in part 1 and 2 together. But then the story-wise, I'm just like, it's serviceable. They kind of turn it more into like a slasher film, which was kind of weird, and less this indulgent exploration of one's own sexuality. It becomes like a slasher film and people using the cube to get something. I don't. I mean, when you see it, like, I probably gave away too much, but I like the look of things. The gore is good. The gore is fun. It's a lot of CG gore, but it's fun.
It seems to me like, and maybe not in the independent horror scene, but at least in like the big budget horror scene, it seems to me that they're kind of moving away from the gore in horror movies now. To where in the old days it used to be the gorier the better. That's what you kind of went for in a horror movie. And then but now it's like all they're doing is like either remakes of stuff or all this woke garbage that nobody wants to watch, but for some reason they keep pumping it out. And that kind of ties in with the new Hellraiser movie as well, because here you have Pinhead being a woman instead of being Pinhead, right? So you're obviously going to have that conversation.
Yeah, but in the book, Pinhead is neither male or female. They're androgynous, just like angels. They have no sex. They're sort of middle ground. So, I mean, the choice to pull in a trans actress, I think is a good call, because I mean, that's true to the original, content.
Where you run into problems is when you have a character that's established throughout the whole series and then you change the character. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't care if like, I'll give you an example. STX made a movie that we watched that had a trans killer. We had Sal on the show to talk about it, and that was a decent movie, and I didn't mind that at all. It's not that it's because it's a woman or it's a trans woman or whatever the hell it is. It's just changing the character. To me, is the problem, and they do that in everything now. Whenever they make a remake, like they're doing it with the new Little Mermaid, where Little Mermaid is no longer a white woman with red hair. Now it's like a black chick. You know what I mean? And it doesn't make any sense. It's like, why change a character that's already established? If you want to make something with whatever fill in the blank ethnicity or sex or whatever you want to do to please a bunch of people, that's cool, but make a new character. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying the Hellraiser's like that. I'm just saying you're gonna run into that conversation with people when you're talking about something like that, where you're changing an established character. And I haven't seen the new Hellraiser yet, so I don't know if that Pinhead is supposed to be the same Pinhead as before, and we're just supposed to pretend that it was always that way, or what the deal is with it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you had Doug Bradley for the last like 30 years, as the face of Pinhead, but I mean, this is a reboot. I mean, it's different. It's kind of like trying to pull back from source material. Where early in Clive's career, when he directed this, he was trying to make, a straight-oriented movie where, clearly he was gay, and so they're trying to pull more from source material, that these are androgynous, they're sexless, and, who plays Pinhead or not, like, I don't think is relevant. Doug Bradley loves the new Pinhead, Hell Priest, whatever you want to call, the character, because the character is sexless. So I don't know. I think it was, I think it all works. Like, it doesn't detriment anything. I think the storyline is more blah than, everything else. Like, the storyline itself is just kind of like, it's serviceable, but it becomes like a slasher. Like, they're not using the cube for what the cube's meant to be used for, the laminate configuration.
Well, talking about Gore, and just so people know,
in the comic books, in the graphic novels, Pinhead ends up becoming the girl from the original 2 movies, ends up changing places with Pinhead and ends up becoming Pinhead. And he wanted a woman in the first, if you ever read Clive Barker, but in the 80s it was a different time and he couldn't do it. But Clive Barker, we all know how his lifestyle, and I love his movies a lot, especially Nightbreed. I think that's one of his most underrated movies I've ever. I wish they would make another one, and they made a graphic novel second of it, but they haven't made it. I love that movie. That's another one I love. That's probably 11 on my list if I was going to be my favorite movies. I forgot about Nightbreed. It's such a great movie. But you want to talk about Gore, and what we've been talking about is Terrifier 2. That movie is changing things with the gore. It's an extreme movie with a $250,000 budget. They made $8 million off right now. Everybody's talking about Art the Clown. I watched that movie, and you can't get into it in a movie theater unless you're 18 and over because it's so graphically extreme. But I loved it. It's one of my favorite movies now. And James, if you get the chance to see that movie, and they're going to play it this week, 1,500 theaters now because it's such a hit. Stephen King's seen it, Tom Savini's seen it, and they're loving it because it just takes it back. But it is making people sick, literally, because I've seen it. It is out there. It's like what Marcus and them make, but it's becoming mainstream, and it is extremely gory and foul. It is crazy. And if you guys can see it. But James, that's one you need to check out, and Marcus will tell you too about it.
Yeah, it's to see the level of gore that's in Terrifier 2 is really stuff you only see in films like the August Underground trilogy, the Vomit Gore trilogy. Really in the deep, dark, hardcore, underground, micro-budget, like splatter films. You know, that's the level of gore. And for that to be opening in theaters nationwide and picking up more and more theaters, as you know, it was supposed to be a 3-day event, like, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then it turned into, okay, we're going to do this the next weekend. And now it's all week. And now we're even adding even more, you know, screens to it. So like, that's really impressive for like a micro budget film to like really land this way. So this is going to open up doors for the indie underground horror, you know, filmmakers who like splatter and gore, you know. So I think that's really good. I think that's a bonus. Flip side, I think that's going to get a lot more censorship on splatter, violence, and gore. Just like they like to blame rap music and video games, you know. It's because Terrifier hit so big, you know, it's a success, but there's going to be some backlash.
I think gore is good when it services the story. You know, I don't like movies that are just gore for gore's sake, but I like it. Like if I'm watching a slasher film, right, or I'm watching a horror movie where they're killing people and doing horrible things, I want to see those things. Like I can't stand it when they do a death scene and it's just like implied. It's almost like a Hitchcock kind of thing where you don't really see what's happening, but you're supposed to be afraid at the idea of what's happening. I want to see it. I want to see what's going on, you know? One thing that kind of surprised me is I always remember, like, let's say the Friday the 13th series, for example. That's a great one to talk about. I remember that for all these really cool deaths, right? And then me and my wife last Halloween sat down and watched the entire series, one after another. And what I realized watching that series back is the majority of the death scenes in the Friday the 13th series are implied. They're the Hitchcock kind of thing. They don't actually show much. And I was blown away by that because in my memory, I remember all these cool death scenes where he's killing people and it's all awesome. And then when I watch it back, I'm like, wait a minute, they're not showing anything. You know, there's almost no actual gore in this. And that kind of blew my mind that my recollection of it was so much different than the reality of it.
Well, another movie you guys could see if you got Shudder is called Sickness. It's a
What is it called?
Taiwanese zombie movie.
Oh, The Sickness. Oh, yeah, that's a fun one. It's
That one
perverse.
is really bad, really perverse, really out there zombie movie. And it's not a zombie movie you would think like, oh, this disease, like, it makes you do things you would think bad to do to people, and it makes you do it. And it's just out there. If you guys can see it, it's really
Yeah, no, I saw it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, crazy movie. And it has, if you like the Serbian film, there's a part in it that I know that's where they got that movie from, and we all know that part from that movie. So it's pretty bad, and it's on. I think it's on Shudder, and it's hard to get on Blu-ray. It's like $50 to $100 right now, but it's pretty gruesome, and there's some really crazy parts in it. But if you guys can check it out, it's an awesome zombie movie. James, that's another one you need to see. That's on your level. Those are the two you need to see if you want to see gore.
Speaking of zombies, what is y'all's preference? And you have two different kinds of zombies. You have like the George Romero Night of the Living Dead, walking around real slow zombies, and you have like the 28 Days Later running after you, trying to kill you zombies. What do you prefer, and what do you like to watch on film better?
Like, I mean, I view them both as different. Like, I kind of hate that they call a film like 28 Days Later a zombie film. To me, it's like a virus infection film, and because that, to me, that's not a zombie. A zombie is something that crawls out of the grave, returns from the dead. Return of the Living Dead 2, I think, was, an excellent zombie film. That's what a zombie is, I guess, but some could argue that, the zombie's like the voodoo zombie, but like in horror movie context, like you have, returning from the grave zombies, and that's what I think. Whether they're slow or not, like I want them returning from the grave. That it's that supernatural element. As soon as it becomes a virus, it's not a supernatural element anymore. It's now like, okay, well, it's a virus. So I just kind of, in my mind, I separate the two genres into their own classifications. I love them both, but me personally, I love zombie films where they're returning from the grave, crawling out of the crypt. I love those. I'd like to see those again. Like, if we could go back to those types of films and not have, everything be like, oh, it was a virus concocted by the government that leaked from a lab. Like, I'm a little burnt out on that theme over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, because we're seeing that in real life. That's actually happening in real life, to where we have viruses leaking from labs and infecting the world. I think if there ever was an actual zombie apocalypse, I think that's probably how it would go down.
Oh, yeah,
honestly,
absolutely.
I mean, it would be, in my opinion, it would be the rabies virus, and it would probably go airborne. If it mutates to airborne, that would be a zombie apocalypse, because you would have the exact same thing. You'd have people trying to eat you. They'd be afraid of water, because when something has rabies, it's afraid of water because it can't swallow properly. The throat constricts, so they will avoid water. So that would make sense. They would appear to be out of their minds, and they would be impervious to pain, all that kind of stuff. And probably the only way to kill them would be a direct shot to the brain to shut it all down, because they're not in their right mind anymore. So probably if it ever happened in real life, it would be a virus. But I am particularly fond of like the old school zombie, the slow walking, you can run around it with a baseball bat and club it in the head zombie. I love that, because I love watching people take out masses of them.
It's not going to stop. Yeah, that's what I love about that. Like, you could beat them, cut them, chop them up, because it's not a virus moving them. It's something supernatural, otherworldly, evil, if you want to go that far, and that's what makes, I think, those types of zombie films scarier, because there's no reason something should get up from the dead.
I'm just a big fan of the old school horror movies anyway, man. And I'm not even talking like just 80s slashers flicks. I'm talking even way before that. Like, I'm a big fan of Dracula and of the Wolfman and those kind of, like, the Bela Lugosi movies, Ron Chaney movies. Even like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. You remember that great movie from when we were young?
Yeah.
I mean, I watch that thing every year around Halloween. It's awesome. Why can't we have cool stuff like that anymore?
Yeah. I don't know. You guys. I don't know. I don't know where your standpoint is. I actually really loved Rob Zombie's Monsters. Like it's caught so much hate, but I'm like, this was fun. Like I don't get why everyone hates it, but
I loved it.
whatever.
I thoroughly
It was
enjoyed that movie.
it was just. I mean, like a lot of people say, like, oh, this isn't the Munsters, and it's like, well, I mean, like, do you remember the Munsters movies? The Munsters movies were bad. Like the Munsters show was bad. The Munsters show was a knockoff of y- the Adams Family. The Adams Family is based on a comic book. The Munsters is based on the success of the Adams Family. It was the Sprite to their 7 Up. You just got to enjoy it for what it is. And I love all incarnations of the Munsters. Like I love there was a reboot of the TV show, like All in Color. I loved it. Like it was dumb, but that's part why I loved it. And that's exactly what I love about this. It's like dad jokes galore. I loved it.
Well, almost all horror movies are dumb. I mean, that's just the truth of it. And the phenomenon you have here is what I call horror snobs. These are these people that take horror movies way too damn seriously. They'll have like all these different Facebook groups based on horror movies, and they'll sit there and critique them. And if you like a movie that they don't think you should like, then all of a sudden, oh, you're not a horror fan. I mean, it's ridiculous. Horror is meant to shock you, to scare you, and for you to enjoy it. And I love a good stupid movie, man. Some of the best horror movies are B rated at best. They're B movies. They're just cheesy and dumb. And that's what makes them so great, a lot of them, And The Munsters was just a fun movie. I really, really enjoyed it. And I don't see why everything has to be so serious and everything has to meet a certain standard in order to be considered a good horror movie. Why can't we just enjoy ourselves? And why can't we have more of the mashup kind of movies like we had in the old days, where you'd have Dracula, the Wolfman, the Invisible Man, the Mummy, all that stuff in one movie? I mean, they started to do a little bit with Freddy versus Jason, but why can't we have a movie that has all these different monsters in it and just have fun with it?
Yeah. I love just about anything. People talk about elevated horror. No, this is like elevated horror is snob horror. But I will literally sit down and watch like something like Hereditary and follow it up with Amityville Vibrator. I I like what I like, whether it's highbrow or whether it's lowbrow. I like everything in between.
As long as it's interesting to me, I'm in. I don't care who's making the movie. I don't care whether people like it or they don't like it. I don't care if people consider it to be, below the horror standard and you're not a true fan. If you like, I don't care about any of that. If I enjoy the movie, I'm in. And it has to have a story for me to enjoy it. It has to be something that I want to watch. That goes back to my point earlier about gore for gore's sake. Like, I'm all cool with a really gory movie. I'm cool with it. But it has to have a story that I'm going to be interested in watching. And that's the problem where a lot of horror movies honestly fall short, is the story absolutely sucks. And if you're not going to have a story worth watching, then what's the point? And it doesn't have to be like Shakespeare. Like, I'm a fan of the Friday 13th movies and stuff like that. They're not Shakespearean movies at all. I mean, they don't have this highbrow storyline. It's a simple story. Kids coming to the camp, Jason's there, he don't want them there, he kills them. It's easy. But at least it's interesting. You know what I mean? Some of these movies they get too, what I call, artsy fartsy sometimes. Where they're trying to do too much, they're trying to be too highbrow, and they just come off as dull as hell, and they just bore the crap out of me.
It's a weird thing, like, as far as me, like, if I don't like a film, like, my brain immediately just like erases it. So like I can't wrap my head around like hating films as much as everyone like are on these super weird tangents about hating everything. Like, I don't know. If I don't like something, I don't talk about it. I don't help perpetuate it, and my brain forgets about it. And then I buy the DVD, many months later, and I sit down and watch it, and I was like, oh, I didn't like this one.
One thing I can't stand is when they do these remakes. And I'm not against remakes. Okay, I'll say that, because some of them are decent. But I can't stand when they remake a movie and they do the woke thing to it, where they change characters, they change all this stuff just to put a minority in, or just to put a gay in, or whatever, right? Just to check some box. I hate that, because you're ruining a great movie. Just leave it alone. If you want to make a movie that has that character type, right, then make a separate movie, make a new one, and I'm cool with it. I got absolutely no issue, you know. But when they take these movies and they ruin them, it just drives me crazy. And an example of that where they didn't do it woke, but they just ruined it, is when they tried to do that new version of Nightmare on Elm Street with the new Freddy, and it was just god awful. I mean, the Freddy looked horrible, the story sucked, it was just terrible all the way around. And that wasn't a woke thing. That wasn't where they tried to insert this group or that group in order to appear, you know, woke. That was just a remake that just sucked. And the way I look at it, if the movie is a legendary movie and it's a great movie and people love it, leave it the hell alone. There's plenty of stories out there to tell, you know? I mean, there's all kinds of authors out there that are writing all these amazing horror novels. Pick one and make a movie out of it. Stop doing the same crap over and over and over again and ruining it when it was fine in the beginning. If you don't have anything else to add to the story, if you're not going to make the story go anywhere, you're just going to repeat the same crap over and over again, I'm just not there for it, man.
Well, I don't know. We hit a point where remakes and the time frame, you know, is exactly the same, but the technology really hasn't advanced more. Like when we made the first Blob, when we made the first Thing, when we made the first The Fly, technology wasn't where it was in the 80s. Everything advanced so far quickly. 30 years, like that was, you know, the 50s to the 80s. And then, and those remakes, you know, John Carpenter's The Thing, David Cronenberg's The Fly, the Blob remake, all of those three were like, yeah, technology, like the special effects, everything's like really upgraded. And here we are, like 40 years later, not much has changed. So like we're remaking things from the 80s, but you know, there's not enough, I don't know. I mean, what can you change about it? Like, you know, I can see the jump from The Fly to, you know, Cronenberg's The Fly, The Thing to John Carpenter's The Thing. But when you're trying to remake like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, you know, all the classics, they just kind of, they hit weird because, and maybe it's because our generation grew up with those. Maybe our parents hated the remakes of The Fly, The Blob, and The Thing. I don't know. But like, you really couldn't do much more with it. You know, they're great films as they were. Like, I'd love to see like a remake of, and they were kind of on this kick again in the early 2000s where they were remaking like 13 Ghosts, House on Haunted Hill, you know, classic old black and white movies that were cheesy, and they're making them like fun, but like a modern William Castle fun. But like, we're kind of not doing that anymore. We're just remaking anything. Oh, let's remake Carrie again, even though we remade it as a TV show maybe 10 years prior, like a made for TV version of Carrie.
What do you think causes that? I mean, do you think it's just laziness? Do you think it's that they don't want to pay for new stories? Or I mean, what do you think is the reason why they keep putting out the same garbage?
I don't know, but like, I support it, but my support for it has a different reason. My support for it is that the more they do that, the more they're going to bore everyone and tire everyone out. So when something like Terrifier comes around, it's successful because everyone wants something new and fresh and different. And bam, Terrifier happened.
I think it's what I call the cookie cutter theory. I think that these executives look and say, all right, we want to put something out that we can do cheap, that's going to make money. Let's just use something that's already worked before. It's kind of like when Walking Dead came out, right? Then all of a sudden, all you saw was zombie stuff everywhere because it worked. Walking Dead worked. People liked it. They wanted to watch it. Had great ratings. So then they say, oh man, everybody, let's make zombie movies now because zombies are in, you know, and they overdo it and it jumps the shark and it's terrible and nobody wants to watch it anymore. Then the next big thing comes out. And then they'll say, oh, vampires are popular now. Let's do this. So then everybody jumps on that bandwagon and they ruin it. And that's kind of what I think happens in Hollywood, man, is these people just, they look for something that's going to make money and they just keep on putting out the same crap.
But eventually people turn their attention away to who? The people who aren't doing those things. Remake after remake after reboot after ripoff after ripoff after ripoff. Eventually someone's going to go, hey, wait a minute. What are these little guys over here doing? And that's why I think Terrifier is successful as it is. You know, it's turned some heads. It's like, oh, here's a micro budget film that's making like over 8 million in theaters this weekend. But whatever, if that's what Hollywood wants to do, I support them, because eventually that clock is going to run out, and that's going to turn the tides, and people are going to start to focus on like the smaller films. What do these guys have to say? What do they have to offer? What do we got over here? And so that's only the reason why I support this weird self-destruction. They don't see it as self-destruction because they've got dollar signs in their eyes. Let's remake this. Let's remake that. But eventually, it's going to all collapse and self-implode. And I support their decision to like unwillingly self-implode, you know, because I don't know, in this past year, like in the past couple years, like we've seen some of the most original, unique content coming out, and I'm here for it. And it's because Hollywood keeps, you know, farting out the same shit over and over. So I'm here for the destruction of the old guard, you know, moving into like, who else is like, what's fresh? I love highbrow horror, I love lowbrow horror, you know, and all of it's kind of taking a new turn. You know, whether people hate films like Hereditary or The Witch or It Follows, you know, for taking a different path because they want their Michael Myers again. But now we're seeing that all fall apart, where they're like, oh, here's your Michael Myers, and everyone's like, that's not what I wanted.
Historically, if you look at it, it's always been the indie guys. It's always been the little guys that have driven the industry. Because all the major series that we love, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, all of those, they were little tiny low budget movies.
Guys. Yeah. Original Halloween, you know, shot for $100,000. Terrifier 2 was made for more money than Halloween was.
At the time, it's probably actually more because talking inflation. Yeah,
it's
whatever. Like $1 million.
Yeah.
So you got to remember, but you got to realize something, and what people need to realize is in the 80s and 70s we didn't see something like that. Now we have, and it's very hard to copy. And they keep rebooting everything. It's nothing different now.
There's rebooting stuff, but nothing's coming of it. Like there's a new Exorcist remake on the way that no one asked for. Why is Exorcist 1 so profound and stuck with it? Because no one had seen anything like it. Nowadays, you can browse your video store shelf and sorry, they don't have those anymore. You browse your Roku, but like there's like 200 more exorcism films that are just copies of The Exorcist. There's nothing different. They don't bring anything new to the table.
I miss the video store. Dude, there was nothing like going in there on a Friday night to the horror section of the video store and just having a shelf after shelf of cheesy horror movies to choose from. Picking something you never even heard of before just because the cover looked cool. Taking it home and discovering an absolute gem. That was the greatest, man. Kids today have no idea how good that was.
Oh, and people don't want to buy stuff. They're like, well, I don't want to buy it unless I know it's good. And, you know, okay, that's valid. Your money only stretches so far because it's economy. So, yeah, if you're going to put money onto something, you want to know it doesn't suck. But that was the gamble that we took back in the 80s, you know? Like, you go to the video store and you're going to rent something like, is this going to be good? You don't know. You just rented it. And sometimes you had to wait weeks for that one copy of 976 Evil. You know, you've been waiting for it, but it's always out and you finally get it. And are you going to like it or are you going to hate it? Is it going to become a classic or is this going to be like something forgettable? Like, you know, you didn't know. If you don't like something, just forget about it. Erase it from your brain and find something you like and talk about the things you like. But no one likes to do that. I can't get onto that. What is that? It's like a website or a phone app where you write reviews for stuff. Letterbox. Like, I can't get on it because, like, if you go there and read reviews, the whole thing is, I just refer to it as litter box because, like, all people do is shit on everything. That's that's where we're at these days, is people just shit on everything.
I one time got a review on one of my books, and this person wrote a paragraph review, right? And this whole paragraph, they're bitching about how much they hated this book, and they're bitching about the things they hated about it. Well, the funny thing was, none of those things were in my book. Like, they were bitching and writing a bad review about another book, but they were reviewing my book. They had the wrong one, right? So they gave it like a 1-star review, and it was like completely the wrong book. It had nothing to do with what I wrote. And I was like, what the hell is this, you know? So you kind of got to take that with a grain of salt, because a lot of people don't have the same taste, if that makes sense. One person might watch a movie you make and love it and think this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Another person might watch it and think this is absolute crap.
Yeah, I mean, my entire life, I grew up loving Halloween 3, and was told, like, that's not the real Halloween. There's no Michael Myers in that. And that's how it was up until, like, maybe within the last, like, 10 years that started to turn around, that now it has this, like, wild, fan base that, like, love Halloween 3. And I don't care about the other films. Like, I appreciate, the success and what the first film did, but I don't care about Michael Myers. Like, Halloween 3, that's a fun, weird film, and I love it.
Yeah, I just never got it. I don't hate it. I'm not like anti-Halloween 3. I'm not one of those guys that's like, if it doesn't have Michael Myers, it's not Halloween. I just didn't get it. You know what I mean? And because at the time it came out, the first two were about Michael Myers. And then this third movie comes out, has nothing to do with the first two movies. And I just didn't get it. I'm like, if you want to do a different movie, just do a different movie. But don't call it Halloween 3 if it has nothing to do with the other two. It didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and see, like, but now if I say American Horror Stories, what do you think? Each season was still called American Horror Stories, and then went its own direction. But that's exactly what John Carpenter wanted to do. There was never supposed to be a Halloween Part 2 with Michael Myers. That was the studios that forced him into it. And then when he finally, because that one also did well, he's like, well, I want to take my Halloween theory, idea, which was have a running series and every film be some totally new plot. And the studio's like, no one's going to go for that. And if they hadn't have made Halloween 2, and that's the tricky thing. If they hadn't have made Halloween 2, Michael Myers wouldn't have taken off the way he did. But if they had jumped to Halloween 3 directly after, the first Halloween, I think it still would have been confusing for people. Bud the Chud. Like, the first film's fun because, like, cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. Like, the first film's a lot of fun. Like, you see the monsters, they're kind of creepy. Chud 2, absolutely nothing like Chud 1. But I love the sequel. It's funny. It's weird.
Troll and Troll 2.
Well, Troll 2 is a different story because Troll 2 was going to be called Goblin and was absolutely not written to be a sequel. It was a film that the studio's like, oh, hey, we've got this thing, and maybe if we change the title to Troll 2, we can tack it onto this. But, I mean, two totally different films, written totally different. It was supposed to be called Goblins, but the studios named it Troll 2. So, I mean, but that's a bad film that everybody loves because it's a bad film,
One of the worst movies ever made. I don't know if you saw the documentary about Troll 2, but Troll 1 was great. I love it. It's so bad. I love it. But then I like Part 2 is just so bad. But it isn't even nothing to do with the trolls. And actually, I heard there's a Troll 3, Goblin 2, or something. It was just even worse. So, and that's why you never heard of it. So, but
yeah, Troll 2 was never supposed. When they were filming it, they weren't setting out to make Troll 2, or at least when it was written. It was once the studio got involved, then it became Troll 2, because but yet that's why they're called goblins throughout the rest of the movie, because it wasn't technically written as a sequel.
So that's a very interesting idea to close out the show. If you had to pick one, only one, what would your worst movie ever made, worst horror movie ever made be? I'll ask Marcus first, and then old boy, you go after.
See, that's a hard one because I probably own like 3 copies because I forget that I don't like it, and then I just buy it again because I'm like, oh, what's this? This looks interesting. So I don't know. This is going to be a hard one. Go to James first, and I'll come back to that.
Cabin Fever. Absolutely hate that movie. I hate the remake. I hate the second one. And then you could put Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 in that category too. I hate that movie. And probably the new Nightmare on Elm Street.
All right, I'll give mine to give Marcus another minute or two to think. Mine is an easy one. I would choose the Blair Witch Project is the one I hate the most, the worst one ever made. And the reason is because that stinking movie started the whole found footage thing that made the Paranormal Activity movies and all those other garbage movies. I cannot stand the found footage genre. It is the worst. The filming sucks, the aesthetic sucks, the special effects sucks, everything about it sucks. We're supposed to believe, oh, somebody found a camera in the woods and look what was on it. It's retarded, man. It is absolute garbage, and I cannot stand those kind of movies. And the Blair Witch Project is what started that whole mess. That's my choice.
Wow. That is a very strong opinion. Wow. I think the one film that I saw, and I can't really hate on it because it's got excellent gore. The cinematography is great. It's a film probably no one else has seen, but it's one thing. I mean, and there's one thing that bugged me, and I hate this in films. I want to say it's called The Orphan. No, Orphan Killer. The killer in the movies, his name is Marcus, so that kind of stuck out. But excellent gore. The gore is really good. The cinematography is great. The one thing that killed the movie for me was like, I'm going to put all my friends' death metal band soundtrack in, like, because it's an indie film. But oh man, I hate anything with a death metal soundtrack like that. That's not a score. That's not what, that's not composure. That's not, I don't know. There's something like, oh, I hate that. Just metal as a soundtrack. Like, no, please, no, don't do that. Please don't do that.
All right, well, on that note, we are out of time. So I'm going to throw back over to you, Marcus. Give any kind of shout-outs you want. Talk about what you got coming up and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll go to Old Boy for his shout-outs.
So, coming up, hopefully in a few months, a release of, my wife and I did a documentary on Red Films, the most extreme films from around the world, kind of a look into who makes these types of films, who watches these types of film, what kind of psychological effects could they have on people. So we tried to do a deep dive into like the most fucked up cinema we could find, and it's called Beyond Horror. Hopefully in a few months it'll have a release date. We're still waiting. But what else? Yeah, I think that's it that I can talk about right now.
I want to thank everybody on Parax Radio for listening to us every Sunday nights at 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern. I want to thank Marcus for coming on the show. Just so you guys know, this is a Halloween special. Parax is really cool. We'll probably be able to play this maybe without editing it. If not, we'll edit it because of the swearing. But no big deal. You guys want merchandise, let us know. A lot of big things are coming. We're talking to networks. That's all I can say. I've met a lot of cool people. I haven't got to tell you guys. I got to meet Corey Philman a couple weeks ago, and Andy Delahoff. I think that's how you say Dimahoff. I'm probably killing his name, but he was the Wishmaster. I met him a couple times. He's a really cool guy. I'm trying to get him on the show, and that might be down the line, but that's secret. I hope you guys have a happy Halloween. I hope you enjoy your fall solstice too. blessed be misfits, sugar ladies, monster lovers, and demon hunters. I love you and have a great night, and bye.
I want to thank Marcus for coming on. Again, like we've done so many of these, man, and we'll do so many in the future. For those listening, Marcus is a dear friend of ours. We hang out and we talk all the time, and it's always great to have him on the show. And we're going to have to do your show again, Marcus, if you guys are still doing it on YouTube. That was a fun time.
Yeah. The more off topic from like tonight's topics, I'd love to have you guys back on again. The show's been in kind of like, we just started and then it's in a hiatus because everybody's got jobs and work and things. So, but it'll pick up soon.
Real quick before we go, give the name of the YouTube channel that you got going on there. That way people can go and subscribe.
Our channel is called A Theory of Conspiracy. We just kind of like talking about any and all conspiracy theories, UFOs, cryptids, paranormal, just anything wild, any kind of topic. We just kind of like to delve into. I wouldn't even say a deep dive. We just like to casually discuss, random things of that nature, if you're into that.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you again, Marcus, for coming on. I appreciate you being here, brother. And that's all the time we have, guys. So until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.